Today I'm going to share my thoughts on the best season talents to pick in Call of Dragons. And yes, these can be very, very game-changing for the way that you actually go about fighting against other players in the game. So stick around in this video for everything you need to know, how you unlock your talent points, and where to put them. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons. And I just wanted to make this quick video reviewing what I think some of the best talent choices are. Now talents are available starting in season T1 of Call of Dragons, and they may go back and add them to earlier seasons as well. Last I heard, T1 is where they first show up, and they're also here in season B2, which is where I'm at right now. Season talents are obtained from talent quests. You're going to need to get these points. There are a maximum of 21 points that you can get. The majority of them, most players will get, that is 18 points. However, 3 of these points are locked behind combat. So if you aren't actually a combatant in your season, the maximum you would get would be about 18 points because you're not going to get these 3 points over here, which are basically from fighting in what's called the glory rankings. So the majority of these you will get, however, if you are active in your season, getting heroes to level 50, battling darklings, taking out villages, and so on. So once you get these talent points, and you will start your season with 2 of them, you're going to go in and you're going to pick season talents. And there are several that you want to go and pick right away. The one that you need to get right away is Renown. 10% more prestige from defeating dark forces and destroying darkling forts. The reason this is very critical is that prestige is what you're going to need to get your policies in a good spot. Now, this video is not about policies, so we're going to double back and focus in on these talents, all right? But this is a no-brainer, slam dunk, must pick at the start of the season, and at the end of the season, this is going to become irrelevant. The other one that I think is a slam dunk must pick at the start of the season, it's right over here. It's back in business, baby. This gives you CP recovery. CP is what you use to fight darklings. Darklings are how you get more renown and more experience, all right? Or more prestige, I guess I should say. So both of these, to me, are a slam dunk. Then the question becomes, where are we going with this, okay? Big picture goals. Where am I headed? And it's important to keep in mind both the cost of unlocking these skills and also where some of the best skills are. Now, to unlock these skills, you're going to apply your talent points. It's 1 for the first row. It's 2 for the second row, 3 for the third row, and 4 for the final row. And if you pick 1 in a row, you cannot do the other. So you can see here it says forfeited. So I cannot go and get the one on the right because I have chosen the one on the left. Now, you can go and reset if you want, but last I checked, there it is. There's a 40-day cooldown on how frequently you can do this. So typically, if you're going to reset, you're pretty much only getting 1 during your season, all right? Pretty much. Unless you really mess things up super early in some major way and reset immediately, but it just feels pretty unlikely, all right? So what are some of the best choices? And to figure out what actually are the best season talents to pick, we need to look at the payoff. The payoff typically comes in the top of the tree. In this case, it's technically the bottom of the tree. So let's review these really quickly and talk about what they do. So in the battlefield domination tree, you can get martial fortitude. And this says when your infantry or cavalry units launch a melee attack at a ranged legion in the field, they take 15% less damage from that legion. Here's the thing. While that is cool, my infantry are typically getting hit by like 50 things, and this doesn't work in rallies and garrisons. So martial fortitude, in my opinion, is not amazing. You almost never with infantry find yourself in a 1v1. You might find yourself in 1v1s with cavalry, but often I would say like why? Like what's even really happening there that you're off like KP chasing or something in a 1v1. So I would say martial fortitude is not compelling. It is not a choice I would make. The next one, however, is very powerful. It's so powerful, spoiler alert, this is what I will recommend everybody gets. It is suppressive fire. Every time your ranged legion deals normal attack damage to a target, the march speed and rage accumulation is reduced. Now, this is a march speed reduction of 1% per stack. You can get 5 stacks, I believe. So it's 5% in total. And rage accumulation speed of 1%. You can get a max of 10% reduction for 5 seconds. So this is pretty major. You can get a lot of debuff onto your enemy. And okay, 5% march speed, 10% rage speed accumulation. I mean, how big of a deal is that really? Here's the thing. Every time you apply a suppressive fire debuff, it counts as though your march has applied a debuff. You may think, well, why is that a big deal? Certain heroes actually benefit more than others from applying debuffs. And you may recall that a certain pet, also known as the Berserk Phaedrake, this guy's based around the application of debuffs. And I tested this in the last season, and it did trigger Arrogance. Arrogance makes it so that each debuff inflicted on the target gives you a stack, all right? And then you do damage based on the number of stacks you have on your Berserk Phaedrake. So, as it turns out, Berserk Phaedrakes on physical damage dealers in this season are actually insane. They are much better than actually a lot of the other pet options that you would have if you go and you take suppressive fire. And by the way, you can do damage at range, at least as of the testing I did last season. All right. So for archers, the Berserk Phaedrake probably is the best pet with the exception of like Night Rock on Sinfray. All right. So suppressive fire, for as long as this is here, for as long as it works as it did last season, is really busted. It's a good debuff, and also it makes the Berserk Phaedrake and anyone with debuff synergy do well. All right. Now, if we look at Engineering Mastery, this is not bad. Also pretty good. Breaching Strike. When your Legion launches a normal attack, they have a 10% chance to reduce the target's defense. This is also a debuff by 0.5% for the next 10 seconds. Max of 10 stacks, so 5% defense reduction. Multiple Legions can add stacks at the same time. And adding a new stack resets the duration. The only question I would have is, does this defense break stack with other things? I don't know. But let's assume that it does, even if it did. The problem with the Engineering Mastery tree is that High Ground makes it so that Legions and Keeps deal more damage. Nobody cares. Alliance Architecture, your turrets begin at level 2. Nobody cares. Okay? Prayer of Light, this is not terrible. When your Legion is severely wounded, they go home faster. Not bad. Master Builder, turrets take 50% less time to build. Kind of nobody cares. Increase the engineering of ranged units. Kind of nobody cares. And turret shields, turrets are worthless. So the point I'm trying to make here is, even though I actually really like Breaching Strike, there's no way you'll catch me going for that, given that everything along the way is unimpressive. The final thing we need to get a look at is battle preparation. When your Legion is gathering in Alliance territory, it cannot be attacked, and while in combat, it cannot enter resource points in the field. Honestly, I would not take this under almost any circumstance, because there's times where you're running from an enemy and you use a resource point to get away, and you can't now because you're in combat. So the only tree that I think is actually worth running all the way down to the top is Battle Acuity. And you get Suppressive Fire. So this is 10 points that I would say is worth committing. And it's going into Battle Acuity. 1 over here, 2 over here bringing us, well, in this row, I should say. Okay, 1 in this row, 2 in this row brings us to a total of 3. 3 in this row brings us to a total of 6. 4 more points over here brings us to a total of 10. This gives us 11, or, depending on whether or not you're a combatant, as low as 8 additional points to deploy. But let's just talk about where I would put these points in Battle Acuity first. So there are 2 places. The first is Legion March Speed, and the second is dealing more hero skill damage. If you are a rally or garrison, you want the hero skill damage. If you are primarily fielding, which is my game plan at the start of the season, I'll probably take Gale Step which is the 5% march speed. From here, hearts as 1 makes it so that when you have at least one ranged legion in the battle, or on the battlefield, each additional ranged legion that enters the battle increases your ranged legion attack by 1.5%. So if you had 5 ranged legions, you'd get 6% attack on all of them. And while that sounds cool, I don't think it's completely game-changing, especially given that if you don't have ranged legions, or if you only have 2, you're not getting much benefit at all. Your ranged legion attack is up by 1.5% if you had 2 legions that are ranged on the field. So I tend to think that Burning Rage is a safer choice, because here's the thing that most players are doing. Most players should be running something like infantry into the field to support holding the field. Or if you're weaker, you're only bringing 1 or 2 ranged marches at a time, especially when the going gets tough. So I think Burning Rage ends up being a safer pick and has really crazy, of course, Sindrian and Freygar synergy. You can make arguments for either of these. It all depends on your playstyle. I personally plan to grab Burning Rage, even though I do at times use an upwards of 4 ranged legions at a time, which would give me 4.5% attack for those ranged legions. It's not bad, but there's also times where I'm not even using 4 ranged legions, right? Sometimes I'm just using 2 mage marches. So I'm just going to go with Burning Rage, and that I think is a fine choice. Both of these are strong. Now, this next one is the most contentious by a long shot. And long shot is maybe the word I should use, because long-range warfare makes your marksman units have an attack range equal to your magic units. But they also have 15% less physical attack. Now, this is reducing the base stat of attack on your marksman. This is not good. Okay, these are my elk riders. They are ranged, but here's the marksman. Okay, we go in. It is reducing the base attack. This is a dramatic drop in damage. Dramatic. But having range is insane. So what I found in the last season is that the people who had this could poke really well. What I mean by poke is you hit from a very long range and like enemy marksmen can't even hit you. But the downfall of this is that if you have a competent enemy that can push you, you get wrecked, because now all your marksmen, which are really high single target damage, have had their damage reduced dramatically. So long range warfare is really, really good at this state of the game, in which we don't really have, 5 meta mage marches typically that we're running out at a time. People bring a couple mages, couple marksmen. This lets you play all your ranged units kind of like one, and it's just way, 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 way easier to play. So from an ease of gameplay standpoint, I actually think long range warfare is a great pick for most people. That said, I think your performance in behemoths will suffer if that's a thing you care about. And if your alliance is getting pushed and you had marksmen on the field, they're not going to do nearly as much. So in some ways, this ends up being a little bit of a win more, because if you're winning already, then you're pushing the field and you didn't need long range warfare. And if you're losing, long range warfare is kind of tough. You're probably getting shoved. And if you're getting shoved, you probably don't need the extra range anyways, or you're just constantly running. So my general sense is that this is a bit of a win more, but I feel like this, for the pure reason of managing 4 things, an infantry march plus 4 ranged marches, 2 marksmen and 2 mages is what most people would consider meta. Maybe these days you might say 3 marksmen, given the launch of the new marksman heroes. The point I'm trying to make is long-range warfare is definitely contentious. Pros and cons to it. But something that has no downside whatsoever is Arcane Torrent. While in the field, your magic units gain 5 more rage per second and deal 10% more hero skill damage. I mean, look, you like mages. This is pretty freaking sweet. There's just no way around it. Extra rage on your mages is awesome. except on Tohar, weirdly enough. He doesn't really care about that. But you're pairing Tohar with someone who does, right? I would say overall, I'm probably going to pick Arcane Torrent again. Just going to go that route. I think it worked really well. So for me this season, at least at the start of the seas, I'm going to make my way over to Gale Step, Burning Rage, and then Arcane Torrent. That's probably it before I go and get Suppressive Fire. But there are a couple more things we need to talk about. Remember, I dropped these into battle preparation. And from here, there's a couple really important pickups. One of those is Swift Supplies. Heroes and War Pets gain 20% stamina recovery. Now you may think, why should I want this? I'm not going to run out of stamina, Chisgule. Here's the thing. Even if you aren't running out of stamina the way you play now, what you could do is use fewer marches, but every time you run out your marches, you use your best ones, and you do that more frequently. You focus all your healing into whatever unit type is associated with that. So Lily Velen, for me, was an all-star, doing massive area of effect damage, and I could run that out and last a long time. So if I picked Swift Supplies, and what I wanted to do was just really maximize value over time with my field presence, this is really good. Coincidentally, even if I don't want to maximize value over time with my field presence, and I'm just running it down as fast as I can over and over to try to get control of the field, Swift Supplies is really good in that situation too. Because in that situation, or players that have lots of troops, or doing lots of healing, you're gonna run out of stamina. And then when you do, you have to sit out, and that sucks. So Swift Supplies is the pick. Easy choice. The other option, if you rally or garrison or are not really healing and are a casual, is to take Glory Bound. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, take Glory Bound if you're casual or a rally lead garrison. Take Swift Supplies otherwise. Everyone else takes Swift Supplies. Glory Bound makes it so that for every 200,000 merits you get 0.1% all damage, stacking up to 10 stacks, so 1% all damage. So 2 million merits and you'll have 1% all damage. I rallied and garrisoned. I had this one. It was a good choice. I would definitely not leave home. However, without Swift Supplies, this is what I'm taking this season, and it is a slam dunk. It's not even close. All right? So this means my game plan is to go into battle Acuity, 10 points. You know that I think these are valuable, so now we're up to 13. I'm going to take Swift Supplies. I'm up to 14 points deployed. So there's only really 4 more points to use if you are a more casual player. And I personally am going to take Logistical Support. Reduces healing cost of resources at your Herbalist Hut by 10%. Let me tell you something. In the last season, I spent 1 billion mana on healing. In this season, I would like to not spend 1 billion mana on healing. The way to not spend that much mana on healing is, for me, to reduce the healing cost. I'm going to do what I need to do to win. But if I reduce my healing cost, I can run more troops out. It's a slam dunk. If you are obviously a casual player, just here for collection, you don't have a fight, you're preparing for your next season, you've already won, then getting an extra warrant every day is actually a really big deal. This is a really big deal. But I think from a combat standpoint, it's just undeniable, especially with some of the policy choices in this season, that logistical support could be amazing. It all depends on the way that healing cost reductions stack up. And that's a detailed topic, perhaps for a separate video, because you can get an upwards of 90% healing cost reduction. And I don't think that's going to be like the total cost for healing is now 10% of what it would have been otherwise. I think they're going to be multiplicative. So one reduction for cost will apply, then another reduction, then another, then another. And it's not going to just be additive. Like, so it, it's not going to add them all up and it's a 90% total reduction. I think 90% of reduction will probably yield, I don't know, closer to like 50% total cost reduction. I'd have to actually do the math for all the multipliers. But who knows? I don't know how that works yet, but either way, reducing the resource cost, I think, will be really big. All right. Now, that only leaves me like 2 more points to work with, I think, right? How many more points do we have? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right? So 1 more point if you're casual. And we're actually looking at 4 more points if you're not. I don't think I would take Alliance Protection, as I mentioned earlier. So if I had just 1 more point, I suppose I would just give my turrets better shields. And there's 18 points deployed. All right. So you go all the way to here. Swift supplies, reinforced turrets is the last thing you get. And then I think Renown, back in business, and logistical support or diligent statecraft is really outstanding. Now, that said, if you're going, obviously, a pure combat route, and there's a lot of value to that, and you're not going to be doing resource healing. I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing. If you're going to 21 talent points, you are doing resource healing. That or you have such a casual season, none of this conversation even matters. Just go get the economy, right? So if we take the build I'm recommending here, 10 over here, you go 6 points in over here, all right, because you really want to get logistical support. This is going to leave you 5 points. We're putting 1 over here. So you've really just got 4 points left, right? 4 points left. This is 17 total. We need to get to 21 if we had the points. I would probably take one of these. Subjugator. Your legion gains Subjugator upon entering battle, increasing their attack by 0.5% every 1 second for a max of 5 stacks. Here's the crazy thing about Subjugator. The way this works, I think, is going to count as giving a buff every second to Hosk, which is really good. So I think this works on heroes that benefit from getting buffs. Like, for example, Thea has a talent, and that talent makes it so she gets 15 rage when she gets a buff. I think this might work for her every time it triggers. If it only works the first time it triggers, that's not as exciting. But I think that works every second. And that might, like, work every second for the rest of the fight. I'm going to have to do some testing with this, but Subjugator seems amazing. The alternative is Cavalry Vanguard. When your cavalry units launch an unyielding rush. I mean, look, are cavalry even relevant? I don't even care about this at all. Rush speed is increased by 20%. Each time your cavalry units successfully rush a ranged unit, their attack is raised to an upwards of 10%. Pretty cool for 10 minutes. Wow. Timer resets each time the effect is triggered. Very cool. Look, I would take Subjugator. It's better for Rally Garrison, and also, I think, better for Field. All right? And that is pretty much all the points I have. I think I got like 2 points left. I drop one of these, maybe. And boom. That's it. That's all my points deployed. Now, if you wanted to carve off these points in battle preparation, and you're like, nah, man, I am not going to go for resource healing. I'm not going to take back in business. I'm pure combat. I'm not even going to take renown at this point. I have all the renown I need for the season. Then you could do some kind of interesting things. Like, I think with 21 points, you could go all the way down into battle acuity and take what I'd recommended. And you could go into battlefield domination all the way. And if you did that, I feel like Rebound is amazing. When your infantry units come under attack from ranged units in the field, they have a 10% chance to reduce damage taken by 20% and deal counterattack damage back to their target. Wow. Wow. That is amazing. So I think Rebound is extremely good for infantry. Slam dunk. Very good choice. Courageous Rush makes it so that when your cavalry units launch an unyielding rush at their targets in the field, rush speed is increased by 20% and they take 15% less damage. And rush skill cooldown is reduced by the S3 brackets percentage. Well, I don't know what that number is, but unless you're a cav main doing strange cav main things, I think run Rebound, actually use infantry, and bring value to your team because infantry are amazing. Now, that said, here it is. In my season, we have this new mobility test, and this is perplexing to me. So on April 19th, they started this test. It lasts all season. And they said the test will be available to all players in the server, so it's the server I'm in. Mobility mode allows legions to march and fight more smoothly. Legions will no longer be intercepted or obstructed by non-friendly legions and can move directly through them. I don't know why infantry exists in this game. This makes it so that infantry are irrelevant. Fully irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. So I actually don't understand the function of infantry with the presence of mobility mode. Now, this is a test and does not represent the final game experience, but like, as an inf main, I'm kind of like, should I not play infantry anymore at all? Should I even level up infantry? I don't know if I should even bother to level up my infantry. The only thing that I'm a little confused about this is if you have War Frenzy, does this mean that you will no longer be intercepted? Or does this mean if you don't have War Frenzy and you walk into a gray troop and they don't have War Frenzy, you just walk past each other? So this is definitely the most confusing test I've seen for me personally. There's assuredly something here that I don't understand that the developers are trying to figure out. And that's why I'm a player of the game, not the developer of the game. They must know something that I do not know. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Am I even going to use infantry this season? To be determined based on how this all works out. Like, I'm still leveling my Gorish and Chisgule under the impression that they will still be relevant. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll like being able to run past their entire front line, go where I want, taunt the enemies. I don't know why they bother targeting me, though. They just ignore me. They go walk through me and ignore me, right? I'm off topic. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. If you want more of an intro guide to this season, I'll have a card in the end screen from when I first entered, did all the events, including maxing out the Wheel of Destiny. Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.